Good day. My name is James Stickney, and today I want to talk to you about Dr. Charles Horton Cooley's Looking Glass Theory. But before we do that, I need to introduce you to Dr. George H. Mead. Dr. George H. Mead worked with the concept of self that dealt with the generalized other, the me, and the I. So think of the baseball field. A baseball field being the generalized other, and the second baseman being the me, meaning the person or the person within society that interprets the messages that are coming from society. And then there's the I. There's the I portion of self, which reacts and acts upon those messages coming in from society. So basically, Dr. Charles Cooley's Looking Glass Theory is a way of finding self in Mead's I. And the way that he theorizes that we do that is a self-idea that has three principles. One being self is found in I's imagination of self's appearance to society, to the generalized other. Self is found in I's imagination of the generalized others or society's judgments that they believe are coming upon them. And also, the third element of that is the feelings that self has about the appearance and the judgments of that appearance by others. In other words, I is finding him or herself in the activation of his perceived thoughts about the generalized other, about society. In other words, personal imagination drives personal identification. Dr. Cooley's theory helps the person believe the sense of self comes from an internal conjugation of how we perceive others' thoughts, about how other people think of us. According to Dr. Cooley's theory, the thoughts, judgments, and imaginations of others are the standard on which the true identification of self is found. In his book, On Self and Social Organization, Cooley and Schubert claim, in imagination, we perceive in another's mind some thoughts of our appearance, manners, aims, deeds, characters, friends, and so on, and that we are variously affected by what others think about us. Epstein confirms the premise of Cooley's path to self when he says, the looking glass concept refers to an individual perceiving himself in the way that others perceive him. Can you see how potentially there may be some problems with setting or molding ourselves off of the thoughts and opinions of others that we don't even know are factual? We don't even know what people are thinking of us is true, but yet our perceptions of that is how we mold the I from the general society, from the interpretation of what society thinks of us, and then we act on that and complete the self. Some of the problems that arise from Cooley's Looking Glass theory is that it submits a metaphysical ringtone of Aristotle's Greek holistic thought. Aristotle said the whole is the sum of its parts, meaning self belongs to the collective and not to the individual. It also minimizes human spirituality by finding self completely on I, me, and others. In other words, it reinforces the mind and body concept, but it leaves the spirit out to fend for itself. It causes a person's identity to be shaped on fallible humanity according to the social circles in which we reside. In other words, we make up self based on how we view others perceive us within our immediate to secondary social circles and then beyond. The Looking Glass theory is founded on imperfect humanity and merely gives a false sense of self. In other words, what we believe others believe of us is skewed by our own experiences, good or bad. The problem here is people in and of themselves are a lie. In his Pensives, Pascal asserts, man therefore is a subject full of errors which are incorrigible without grace. Nothing shows him the truth, everything deludes him. Basically meaning that in and of ourselves, we really can't know the truth, we really don't have an idea of what truth is if we found it upon ourselves, like Cooley is founding his theory upon the I within self, instead of on a standard that is true, unwavering, and concrete. People need a complete, concrete, and unwavering truth to become a whole individual. Well, where do we find this truth? Dr. Cooley's premise is that man finds him or herself within the social group reflection. But finding self in God's image is something very different. When a person finds him or herself in God's image, they found themselves upon a true and complete personality. They then have something to build on, something that will always remain the same and won't be wavering back and forth like society does, and the tolerance of things that go on within society. This is a standard set by the one whom created the heavens and the earth and every living and breathing thing within it. Finding self in God's image is where true freedom, where freedom of the bondage of otherness can be found. Stuckerberg claims it is self-evident that the likeness to God is not physical. It consists in man's spirituality and in the fact that he has a free personality. Finding our identity in God's image realigns the mind, body, and spirit dynamic. If a person were to find him or herself in God's image and then assimilate into social order, they would be presenting a concrete whole being within society. Does finding self in God's image mean the advances of sociology and psychology are discarded? It would seem that prudence does not require this to be so. So to be found in God's image actually is embracing all that God, the Creator, has ordained. An article in Andrews University Press claims sociology is a useful tool for Christians because it provides an important account of self and others, and through it one can obtain a much needed understanding of the social world. In Lewis Carroll's book, Alice in Wonderland, the main character, Alice, asked and answered this question: who in the world am I? Ah, that's the great puzzle. This question will exist as long as humanity remains. The adventure to find self never really ends because people are creatures of change. Therefore, the only logical way to find as much of self as possible is to choose a path. We can choose Dr. Cooley's looking glass theory, the sociological path, or we can choose an image of God within path. Will the choice be a sociological one, or will it be a theological one? In this discussion, there was a brief introduction of Dr. Cooley and his social looking glass theory. There was also an introduction to the theology's image of God within. These 2 points of view were not discussed to give an empirical explanation of how to find self. They were discussed so the listener can make a decision of which path he or she will choose as they journey to discover their true identity. So now I ask you, which path will you choose? Will you choose the looking glass theory sociological path, or will you choose the theological God's image within path? Thank you for being here today. I look forward to seeing you all again. Thank you.